What is going on, YouTube? We are back here today on the Fumble Pod, going over just our college today. We're going over the college stuff, rivalry week. I did think about throwing the NFL one in here too, but still Monday Night Football, even though we didn't talk about it, still something crazy could happen there. So we're going to hold off and wait and do the NFL tomorrow. We're going to do college today, though. If you're new around here, I'm your host, Dalton Lee. This is the Fumble Pod. Let's get right into it. So we had 2 games Friday and 3 games Saturday that we had talked about. First one, number 4 Georgia played number 23 Georgia Tech. It was a neutral site at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Georgia opened as a 13.5 point favorite, and we thought Georgia was going to hammer it down on Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech hadn't been good the last couple of weeks. Georgia's been just kind of consistent. And we got the pick right, but the game wasn't nearly what we thought it was going to be. I think Georgia won that game 16-9, and Georgia Tech had a chance with 2 seconds left to throw up a Hail Mary and tie the game, or go for two and go to OT. It was 16-9. I mean, Georgia couldn't do anything right on offense. Georgia Tech couldn't even really do a whole lot of offense. It was truly, I guess you would call it a defensive slug game, but it was a matter of, was the defenses really good or was the offenses just really poor? I think the offenses were just really poor. But Georgia wins, doesn't look pretty. Georgia Tech, you were in the game. You were in the game with number 4 Georgia in the country. I mean, it's something. Back-to-back years, you're in the game with them, but kind of a point now where I don't think Georgia Tech's going to go super far. They're not going to the playoff. Not even in their conference championship game. Shout out to Blue Devils. So it's just a whole lot of nothing. You led the ACC for all this time, and then you throw it away the last 3 weeks. Kind of like Miami last year. You just threw it away. But we still got that game right. The second game on Friday we talked about. Number 3, A&M, going to Austin to play the Longhorns. And A&M was only favored 2.5. I didn't understand it. I thought A&M was the better team. Thought A&M was going to roll them. Boy, were we wrong. Texas came to play. Texas came to play. They actually had a good run game. That defense was playing phenomenal. They played like the defense we saw at the beginning of the year, and truly just made A&M look bad. Marcel Reed to finish the game threw 2 bad interceptions, back-to-back drives, with chances of potentially tying the game. Arch, Arch played better. Arch played better than I thought. He didn't play great, but didn't really turn the football over. He was efficient on the ground using his legs. He skipped a couple passes, but he also made some really good throws. He threw a nice little, having to step up on the run, throw a little 30-yard dime to his receiver. Granted, the receiver was wide open, but still, it was a good play just to keep the play alive to get it to him. Arch played Arch played better than Marcel Reed. Marcel Reed, man, I know at one point he had hurt his ankle, came back into play, but Marcel Reed, even prior to the ankle injury, did not look good at all. There was really no rhythm in A&M's offense. The defense, for the most part, was pretty good, but there were a couple drives they got manipulated very well and gave up big chunk yards to Texas. And honestly, obviously A&M, I believe, is out of the SEC championship game, and this just might have been a good enough win for Texas to maybe potentially sneak into the playoff. Because now they can put on the resume that they beat number 3 A&M, they beat number 8 Oklahoma, and they beat one more ranked team. One more ranked team that's slipping my mind right now. They lost to Georgia, but they beat A&M. They beat Oklahoma. And even two of their three losses are good losses. You lost to Georgia. You lost to Ohio State week one. You have the Florida loss, which isn't good by any means. But you got several good wins. There's a world where Texas maybe is able to sneak into this thing. Maybe. I don't know if I would bet on it, but I wouldn't hold my breath either. There's a good chance that they could sneak on into this thing. But A&M, man, I don't know how you how you flop this bad, undefeated all year. I understand you had a couple hiccups. South Carolina game, probably should have lost that game. You got lucky. But to play this poorly, it's going to pump the hate brakes on potential national champions. Tempers were flaring after the game. Mike Elko getting all pissy at his presser. I don't know. Maybe this would be a good wake-up call for A&M. Finally get their first loss of the year. Maybe they're able to bounce back, pull Ohio State like last year, and go on a tear. Who knows? I think they got the talent. It's just going to be a matter of can they put that talent to use or not. Now we get to the Saturday games. At 12 o'clock, one of the two 12 o'clock games we talked about, Ohio State, number 1 Ohio State, traveled to number 15 Michigan. Ohio State was a 9.5-point favorite. I thought because it was a rivalry game, Ohio State hadn't won this matchup in almost 5 years. It was going to be close, but OSU was going to get it. And for a minute there, I thought Michigan was going to get the game. Michigan gets the opening kickoff, goes down the field, kicks a field goal. Okay. Ohio State ran 2 plays. Second play, throws an interception. Michigan is immediately back in plus territory. They settle for another field goal. But still, in a matter of 5 minutes, Michigan had already put up 100 plus yards, 2 field goals, and Ohio State had only ran 2 snaps. And then after that, Ohio State started doing what they've been doing all year. They ran the ball efficiently. Julian Sand looked really good after that interception. The defense by Ohio State was still phenomenal. After that, I think they went on a 27-3 run. And they truly just dominated the game from that point on. Running the ball, throwing the ball. Defense was keeping Michigan in check. Michigan had almost 100 yards in the first quarter. I think they finished the game with 162. That's how good they were. Ohio State truly looked like the number 1 team in all of college football. Just what they were able to do and be so dominant. I mean, this roster is probably I'm not going to even say probably is the best roster in college football. The defense has 4 potentially more first round picks on it. The offense has 2 potentially more. At least the receivers we know for sure are going to be first round picks between Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith. Julian Sand might play his way into being a future first round pick. They got this freshman, Bo Jackson's been pretty good. Who knows? He might become a future first round pick. That's not even talking about the offensive line. Like, this team is just so good. And even when we saw them stumble for 5 minutes of game time, they still bounced back and just were dominant through. They had the adversity right there in their face, could have crumbled, and just didn't. That's going to be big. That's going to be big to be able to know that they can do that. They can face adversity and still play their brand of football, especially with the game they got this week and obviously in the future. Right? They're the number 1 team in the country. They got to play number 2 Indiana for conference championship. And then they got the playoff games, however many they play, whether it's 1 or all the way to national championship. Obviously, they're the favorite to win it. So we're thinking they're going to go pretty far. They're going to face some very good teams. But to go against Michigan and have that adversity and still come away with the win, it's a big, big plus for Ohio State. Now, Michigan, you went 9-3. You went toe-to-toe for a good bit with Ohio State. I still don't think it's that bad of a year. This is the first year with a lot of your young players. Bryce Underwood, true freshman. You got true freshman at wide receiver. You got true freshman in the backfield. You got several freshmen playing on your offensive line, along with your defense. Like this Michigan core, if they can retain it, is going to play together for 3+ years. So who knows what they look next year or the year after. Like they could develop and make a really good team. So I still think 9-3 isn't the end of the world. You were 7-5 last year. You're 9-3. You should be able to build off of it. I like a lot of what they got going on. They're still trying to build it in the way of which Jim Harbaugh would, but he's not there. So it's going to feel a little different, but they still want to keep that same identity. They want to be very physical. They want to be run heavy, open up play action, have the explosive plays. And I think they have the makeup to do it. It's just a lot of their guys are young. I think you got to give them a little time. I'd like to see what this core looks like next year. And then year 3, when a lot of your stars are going to be juniors, they've been around the program, they know that playbook inside and out. Michigan might be very scary in the not so distant future. I think they're going to be just fine. This is just a wrinkle in the ultimate blueprint for them. Then we get to the second 12 o'clock game. One of the most important games in the ACC. You had number 12 Miami go on the road, play number 22 Pitt. Miami was favored 6.5. And I thought it was going to be a close game, but Miami was going to get the win. You know, some people were saying if Miami wins this game, they might be able to get an at-large bid because of their ranked wins over their ranked losses, or their unranked losses. And Miami just put the hammer down on Pitt. I think they beat them by 3-4 scores. Like, truly just went out there and was dominant on all phases of the game. Pitt couldn't really do much to save their lives. Which is crazy because we just saw how good Pitt was against Georgia Tech, and then they turn around and throw up a stinker against Miami. Doesn't make sense. But this was big because had Miami won this game, they couldn't really go to the ACC championship because of their 2 losses and how all the tiebreakers set up. Had Miami won this game, SMU lose to Cal, and Duke beat Wake Forest, Duke got to go to the ACC championship to play Virginia. And that is exactly what happened. And, I mean, again, there's not really a whole lot to talk about the Miami Pitt game. Miami was truly dominant. Defense was phenomenal. Offense did whatever they want. That scenario that I just spoke on happened. Duke is in the ACC championship to play Virginia this upcoming Saturday. And if Duke is able to pull out this win and win the conference championship, all hell's going to break loose in the ACC. Because if Duke wins and Tulane and James Madison, if all 3 win their conference championships, there's a chance the ACC doesn't get a team in. Because Duke would be 8-5. They're not ranked. They wouldn't be, I don't think, would be able to jump a Tulane or a James Madison in order to get that 11th or 12th seed. So there's a world where, unless Miami somehow does get an at-large bid, there's no ACC teams in there. And that's going to raise hell, especially when we're talking about the ACC. Because they're going to be like, we're supposed to be one of the top 4 power conferences, and we can't even get a team into the playoff. That's when I think we're really going to get a serious rule change on an automatic bid regardless of who wins the conference for the Power 4. And that might be when we move to a slightly bigger expanded playoff. Whether it's 14, I think 24 has been floated out there, who knows. So I think it's going to be best for the ACC. If Virginia wins the game, they'll be 10-1. Or, no, 11-1. They're already ranked. They'll easily get a playoff spot. Just so then they don't have to run into this issue. But the selfish in me is like, I want Duke to win. Duke hasn't won an ACC championship in years, in my lifetime. I've only been to one in my lifetime. I am excited to see the potential of them winning one. After that, it is what it is. I still want the ACC represented. I still think if you win your conference championship, you should get in regardless. But that's other people's issues to figure out. But it's just weird that this scenario was loosely thought of a possibility at some point during this whole playoff. And year two of the 12 team playoff, the scenario is very much alive and is very concerning for a lot of people, especially the ACC, when college football is already trying to make moves in order to be like the NFL and just have two big conferences. So that's if that were to happen to the ACC, it would not shock me if they either A, try to make it just two big conferences, or B, make it where it's an expanded playoff yet again, and it's guarantees from at least the Power Four, and then your other at-larges and your smaller group of fives. But all of this is all hypothetical. We'd have to wait and see what happens. And then at the 3:30 game, we had number 14 Vandy traveling to number 19 Tennessee. Tennessee was favored 3.5. Picked Tennessee to win by a field goal. And Vanderbilt went in there and dominated. Truly dominated. Like, Diego Pavia and the offense had a pretty good day. The defense was no slouch. I mean, they only gave up 24 points. But Vandy put 48 on them. Vandy had a very good day. Now, do I think it was good enough to get Vandy into the playoff? I don't know. They're going to be one of the highly talked about bubble teams just because I think 14 is kind of their ceiling. But unless some crazy things were to happen during conference championship week, I don't think Vandy gets in, but I think they're going to be heavily discussed. You know, they have some okay losses on the schedule. They got some good wins on the schedule. I just don't see them getting any higher. I think the highest they could get to is maybe 12. Maybe 12. And even then, I don't think that's going to be good enough to get an at-large spot just because there's going to be a couple guaranteed spots for some other teams before them. But again, first 10-win season ever for Vanderbilt. Had never had one. I'm happy for them. You know, who knows what they can build off of this, or maybe this was just lightning in the bottle from the last 2 years. But to go in there and dominate Tennessee like that, that is a very impressive win for them. Tennessee, I think now is when you got to be like, okay, several times now we've been an upper tier team, we fall apart late, and then you're not going to make the playoff. You're not even competing for your conference championship. At some point, do you start to question, do you have to make a coaching change? Because I think a lot of it is, I don't think it's a lack of bringing in talent. I think their issue is truly utilizing it. I think a lot of it comes from play calls. I don't think the offense is super great. Not from a talent perspective. I think from a operational standpoint. I don't think you can successfully win with an offense that's built on widespread shotgun runs and choice routes from your receivers. Because eventually you're going to run into good enough defenses that can kind of eliminate everything, and you're going to throw up jump balls or poor miscommunicated routes, and you're going to throw it right to the defense. I think you got to have an offense that can have a little bit of the choice routes in there, but it's still built on a system or an identity. Whether it's running the ball well, quick game, RPOs, something. And Tennessee just doesn't have an identity, and you can tell when they get into the big games, it doesn't work. It doesn't work unless it's a shootout. But even then, when you get to the shootouts, your defense isn't getting any stops. I think they got to take a good long look and figure out, is Heupel truly going to get them to that next level? Because we've already seen a lot of coaching changes around the league. The biggest one now, finally official, Lane Kiffin has now gone to LSU. It's a 7-year, $91 million deal, $13 million a year, with the potential of it being more because he would get incentivized for winning a national championship. It was overdrawn, it was overdramatic about this whole thing for the last month and a half, if you will, because I'm pretty sure everybody knew Lane Kiffin wanted the job, And LSU had made it kind of clear that if he wants it, he can have it. The issue was Lane Kiffin wanted to finish the season and to coach them through the playoff because they were at a point to make the playoff. I think had they dropped a game and been eliminated from the playoffs, he would have left earlier. But because they were had a chance to not only go to the SEC championship but also coach them in the playoff, he wanted to do that. And this is where I give credit to the Ole Miss AD for saying no. You're leaving us for the bigger program in our conference. No, you're not going to coach our guys through the playoffs just to then leave us. So I give credit to AD for putting his foot on saying, no, you're not going to make your cake and eat it. Now, because of the way this calendar is set up and how everything operates, Lane Kiffin left and took a lot of his coaching staff with him. The interim coach is going to be the DC that's been there for a couple years. He hasn't necessarily been great, but he's not terrible. But he took the OC, he took a couple other offensive coordinators, assistant coaches. All of them went on a plane today and went to Baton Rouge. So now you got probably a lot of Ole Miss fans that are upset, and probably players. I'd be kind of upset to be like, well, damn, we just spent all this time putting ourselves in a position to have a great year just for you to up and leave us? Honestly, I'm kind of rooting for Ole Miss. I think it'd be hilarious if they went on and won the whole thing without Lane, and Lane never gets one at LSU. Just because, you know, I obviously have no problem with a coach wanting to get a payday and a bigger job. Obviously, the LSU job is better than Ole Miss. Alabama's better than both jobs. I mean, we can sit here and say this all day, but to do this to guys that believed in you and that you showed that you had believed in them, it's just a bad look. It's a bad look, especially from a personality standpoint, from a structural standpoint. Because who's to say that when he goes to LSU and kids start going in there to play for them, they're not going to be in the back of their mind be like, well, what if the Alabama job opens? Is he going to abandon ship then? It's a weird scenario, and some of it I don't blame so much of it on Lane Kiffin. I blame more of it on the NCAA and how their football calendar is set up. They got to fix it, and I think this was the perfect drama to make them sit there and go, okay, we do got to rework and fix our calendar, because if not, this is going to happen regularly. Well, that's all I got for you this week. I thought we had a really good weekend of college football. Lots of news, lots of drama. Can't wait to go over conference championships and give out some predictions. And then I'm excited for when that bracket comes out after the games on Saturday. It's going to come out Sunday. So I'm excited to talk about that. Tomorrow we're going to get into NFL. NFL had some great games. Some great games across the board. Some games we didn't even talk about that were truly fun to watch. I cannot wait to dive into all of them. If you're new here, subscribe, hit the notifications button. Let you know when we're posting more content. If you've been around for a minute, leave a like, leave a comment, share it with a friend. Trying to build this up, trying to have a big old nice community around here. But until next time, deuces.